I'm going to ask you a question and directly related to what you were just talking about there. And it might be a trick question, but it's not meant to be. Here's the question. I've talked to over 180 now B2B C-suite executives. And one of the number one things that specifically CROs and CMOs do is come in and we talk to customers. It makes perfect sense. Absolutely. But then what ends up happening is we get really busy in the business of being a CRO and we stop having those customer conversations. And it transitions over to we have lots of conversations with prospects. And out of all of these conversations that I've had with C-suite executives, one thing I've developed a hypothesis is that throughout the B2B or industry, we have a very high degree of familiarity with our ICP, but we don't have a very deep understanding of our ICP. And I'm not talking about you in particular. You said most companies don't have a big strategy. The ICP, that is the voice of authority. That's the highest voice of authority in our business. But when we talk to them on a regular basis, when you have those deep, meaningful conversations that you're talking about, and they open up and they'll tell you what's good and what's bad, and they'll tell you about the things they're trying to do and they haven't been able to, and they love your help on, and wonderful conversations come out of that aren't typically part of the day-to-day business process that when we're running sales or a customer success organization, we're very focused on different things. And there's almost like a shield up in like a sales conversation with a prospect, right? Because they know they're getting sold to. So here's my question, and I don't mean it to be a trick question. How do we keep that learning coming in the organization? How do we not stop getting that deep, meaningful feedback that we know we have because things are always changing?
No, it's not a trick question. It's a very good question. I would argue that many organizations do a surface level ICP, ideal customer profile. And I have two favorite questions that I always ask. And if I was obnoxious, I'd show you my little plaques that I had made for when we were all in the office. But one of the questions is why? And the other is, so what? And the reason I think the questions are powerful is often people will say the value proposition is we're the best cloud infrastructure company or we're privately owned. And I always say, why does that? So what? If I'm a customer, do I really care about that? Or if you aren't asking the question behind the question, people have said I can do a little bit of root canal when I do questions because I'm always trying to get driving factor or the driving motivation behind why a customer or anybody says what they say. And often you ask multi-level inquiries, not root canals, but inquiries, and just really try to get, because often customers won't articulate where they haven't put words to actually the problem they're trying to solve or the opportunity that they're trying to seize. And so I think the best way is to be really thoughtful, do your homework before you go in front of a customer, learn as much about their business as you can, and ask really good open-ended questions, and then shut your mouth and listen, because that's where the nuggets of insight comes from. And that's if you can really connect to the root driver of why a customer is saying what they're saying, or help them find out, explore together a business situation, then you often will really get to what is driving that customer to make a decision. And sometimes you're opening that up together. So to answer your question, I think it is being really thoughtful when you're in front of a customer and really exploring with them what their business challenges and needs are. And then you unearth, if you will, really where you can connect. And I think then take that as feedback to, as you refine your ideal customer profile, because like everything, it gets refined and changed over time, then I think you can really get a meaningful client relationship. And by the way, I actually don't like the word sales, Steve.
Okay.
I think it's a bad word because I don't think in the right consultative approach to engaging with a C-suite B2B buyer, if they give you the honor of time on their calendar, you need to make it worth their while, come prepared, ask good questions, and then close your mouth and listen, because it's really not about sales or selling to a customer. It's about listening and uncovering what the real need is. And if you can do that, then that really is where you make the connection and that you really make the magic occur. So I often say it's not about selling, it's about meeting customers where they are in their buying journey. We all know, we can use whatever stat you want to find, that customers are doing their homework, as we all do, before they going to actually engage with you in a meeting on whatever topic. They've educated themselves to the extent that they can, or competitors have educated them. So they're starting to frame their decision criteria in their head. So it's really finding out where they are in that buying journey and going along with them and exploring that and uncovering what the real motivation is that has them talking to you in the first place. I think that's where the magic occurs. So I actually think sales is a dirty word. I shouldn't say that as a CRO. When I started at IBM was in the hardware and software business, right? There was no flexibility. There was no customizing. There wasn't even price discounts. So in that case, you were selling, and I had to convince that customer that what I had to sell is what they needed. When you go into the services space, it's 180-degree different, right? You're listening for need, you're listening for clues, and then you're curating a solution to meet their needs. It's a very different engagement model. It's a very different buying journey, and you're not selling a thing to them, right? You're uncovering need and curating a solution to meet them. So I'll go on the record and say, I think sales is a 5-letter dirty word. And I think we should think more about listening and really exploring with a customer what their needs are. And then you verify and validate the ICP over time.